So, as promised, good morning again. It is 10:05. Thank you all so much for attending DOB's Construction Code Development Listening Session. Today's topic will be fuel gas, mechanical, and plumbing codes. Before we get started today, I just want to go over some DOB house training rules so that way we have a clean, clear session today and we all have an understanding of what to expect. So this is a recorded session. All attendees will be muted during today's listening session, and you will only be able to see the content being shared as well as our panelists attending today's training. For the sake of the flow of today's session, please place all comments and feedback using the chat during today's demonstration. We will allot time at the end for attendees to unmute and share feedback about code development. I want to ensure that everyone has enough time to be able to provide their feedback. So please keep your feedback to a 2-minute maximum so that way everybody has an opportunity. We'll ask that you raise your hands. You will be sent a request to unmute your mic, and then you will have the floor to speak. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it on to our leader for today, Mr. Nev Jordan.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming out to the DOB's fifth listening session. This one is focused on fuel, gas, mechanical, and plumbing codes. My name is Nev Jordan, and I am an outreach specialist. Also listening in with me and serving on the panel are Strategic Enforcement Administrator Keith Parsons, Deputy Chief Building Official Michael Brown, and Chief Inspection Official Peter Nyabagosi. I'll be facilitating this listening session to ensure that everyone has time to speak and be heard. But as Ashley mentioned, please keep your feedback to a 2-minute maximum. We have a smaller group today, so we are looking forward to hearing from you, and we do have a little bit of extra time that we can allot to hearing from you and gathering your feedback. So before we actually get started, I do want to thank Mayor Bowser and DOB Hanlon for all of their assistance with the code development team as we move forward and get everything going. Without further ado, we'll go ahead and get to our PowerPoint. Our agenda for today is as follows. We'll start with an overview, move into construction code development process and timeline, feedback on the code for fuel, gas, mechanical, and plumbing, and have closing remarks. Our overview is as follows. DOB is preparing to issue regulations to amend and update all 12 construction codes to keep pace with national model code cycles and support safer, more efficient, and more sustainable development across the district. This involves a robust public engagement process, and the DOB has kicked this off with a series of virtual listening sessions. These open, facilitated sessions present an opportunity for stakeholders, partners, and community members to share input, raise concerns, and offer suggestions that will help inform our work. Our construction code development process. The DOB reviews the International Code Council, the ICC's 2024 model codes and drafts local amendments incorporating feedback from agencies and stakeholders, as well as substantial work completed during previous construction code development cycles. This allows the district to carry forward previously vetted concepts, lessons learned, and community-driven recommendations into the new set of local amendments. The proposed amendments will be published in the DC Register and will then be made available for public comment. After the public comment period has ended, the DOB will review comments received and make proposed changes as necessary. If substantive changes are necessary, DOB will publish a second proposed rule that will allow for the additional public comment. If no substantive changes are necessary, the mayor will send the proposed amendments to the DC Council for its review. If the council does not act to make any changes to the proposed amendments within the required review period, the new code provisions will be published in Title 12 of the District of Columbia Municipal Regulations, the DCMR. Our construction code development timeline is as follows. We're currently in phase 1, which is the first notice of proposed rulemaking. Throughout summer of 2026, we'll hold listening sessions. So far, we have had one on June 25th, 2026, our first one. That was on property maintenance, swimming pool, and spa. Our next one was July 9th, 2026, building an existing building. July 23rd, 2026, electrical. August 5th, 2026, residential. Today, August 19th, 2026, fuel gas code, mechanical, and plumbing. After that, September 9th, 2026, energy conservation and green construction. And finally, December 24th, 2026, fire. Throughout fall of 2026, we'll publish our first notice of proposed rulemaking. We'll move into our public comment period. You'll have 45 days to get your comments in. As we continue to move into our timeline, phase 2 will be our second notice of proposed rulemaking. In early 2027, we'll prepare content for the second notice of proposed rulemaking. Summer of 2027, we'll publish our second notice of proposed rulemaking. We'll have our second our second public comment period, which will be 30 days. So you'll have a shorter amount of time to get your comments in. Phase 3, final codes. As we move further into summer of 2027, we'll prepare our final codes. Fall of 2027, we'll have a council review period. And in late 2027, we'll publish final codes. Now we'll move into a section of our session for feedback. This is really where we want to hear from you, particularly regarding the current fuel, gas, mechanical, and plumbing codes. We're seeking your feedback on the following: code provisions that work well and should be maintained, sections that are difficult to interpret or apply, requirements that create challenges during design, permitting, construction, inspections, maintenance, or enforcement, areas where clarification, modification, or additional guidance may improve the code. This is your opportunity to tell us exactly how you feel, how anything might have presented a unique challenge to you, how it's impacted your work, life, what have you. This is your opportunity to be heard. So please feel free to drop your feedback into the chat and we can go from there.
So what we can also do is take a show of hands, and at once you raise your hand, I will send you a request to unmute your mic, and you have 2 minutes to provide your comment or feedback. Okay,
Thank
Abel,
you.
you're welcome.
Are you able to hear me well?
Yes, we can.
Okay. My name is Abel Mene. Um, I'm also advisory neighborhood commissioner for Kennedy Street neighborhood and Bridewell Park. I'm also a tenant who has lived in various buildings in the district. My comment is very particularized, and it deals with the mechanical code as it applies towards um, properties, rental properties. In particular, the section I'm particularly thinking about is about kitchen ventilation and or just ventilation throughout the apartment or unit. I understand that commercial rental units or property is covered under the property management code, and that um, in this particular case, it's the mechanical code, and let me get exactly what provision I'm um, talking about. I want to particularly talk about this will be 12E, I'm assuming, because it's the mechanical code 501.3. This provision has some information about kitchen ventilation and how an exception to that. And there is an exception of, on number 3, which gives uh, property to that allows property to not have kitchen ventilation like exhaust to the outside if natural or mechanical ventilation is provided. I want to particularly want the DOB to strike the or natural ventilation provision, because what is currently happening is that properties that were built, years ago in the 70s, 50s, once they become renovated, are not becoming fully renovated to have kitchens that ventilate to the outside. Instead, what they're installing are these recirculating um, microwave ventilation units. And since there's natural ventilation, which is basically windows, since there are windows in the apartment, they're saying that they don't need to install kitchen ventilation that goes to the outside. I find this very strange. I think kitchen ventilation is a very important um, public health issue, and indoor pollution is actually the biggest contributor to disease, to various issues, health issues. But I've noticed though that the residential code, which covers single family property, has a particular provision that does not give exception to natural ventilation. But for some reason, the property management code and the mechanical code do give exceptions to natural ventilation. And this discrepancy between the two is creating a situation that when older buildings have renovated, they are not installing kitchen ventilation, which is leading to indoor pollution. All the cooking fumes that come from a kitchen use is not being exhausted to the outside. So I'm really hoping that in this revision, you will strike from 501.3, the exhaust discharge section of the mechanical code, in the exception number 3, that you strike the provision or natural, the two words or natural. That will have a major effect in improving indoor air quality in apartment units. So I think I've gone over my 2 minutes. I'll stop there. If you have further questions about details of what I'm talking about, I'm happy to provide them.
Thank you so much for your feedback. Just a quick reminder, our official comment period starts in fall of 2026. So please make sure that you submit your feedback at that time. But great feedback. Thank you so much.
Hey, and this is Keith Parsons. I'll jump in on that a little bit, in part because, I actually live in a unit that's exactly like the unit described, right? It has a vent hood that recirculates into the kitchen space, and it also has a natural ventilation in terms of a window to the outside. Um, the only thing I would add to that, I mean, obviously we'll look at that, and as Nev said, do submit a official comment when we open for comment in the fall. But part of the logic behind that is that the window ventilation is sort of the best ventilation. There's a lot of places in the code where they talk about mechanical ventilation versus natural ventilation, and the natural ventilation is considered superior, right? Opening a window, you're going to be able to air out any room more easily. But definitely appreciate the comment, and look forward to hearing from you later in the fall.
So, Kim, I've sent you a request to unmute.
Hi, good morning, everyone. How are you guys doing?
There was a
Morning.
slight delay. There we go, Kim. We can hear you now.
Okay, good. Good morning. I am Kim Preddy. I'm currently the bylaws chairperson for the DC chapter of the ICC. Um, so I just wanted to speak on two items within the DC Plumbing Code, which would be Section 403.3 and Section 410.3. So under 403.3, we are mandated to provide restrooms for the public. And over the last couple of years, especially this year with the rollout of the PUPS program, I've noticed that my clients have been running into this comment when it comes to properties that are tenant layouts or tenant rollovers where one tenant is moving out and a new tenant is moving in. And for a lot of these properties here in DC, for example, corner stores, bodegas, 7-Elevens, retail shops, um, public restrooms were never a thing in those places, but they have been in operation for years and years. And now, when we get into permitting to establish the new use, we're being asked to make bathrooms available, which is proving really, really difficult. And me personally, I mean, I can't walk into a corner store, right, and buy some candy and use the restroom. So there's been a lot of pushback on that, and I think that should be taken into consideration, especially for the older properties that this wasn't required before or wasn't enforced before, and finding some way to write in the code an exception um, for these types of properties. Same goes to 410.3 with the requirements for water fountains. I recently did a candy shop in Georgetown. It is that they sell beverages and candy, and the owners found it striking, a company out of New York, I might add. They found it striking that they were being made to basically rip out the walls of a place that was completely move in ready to install a water fountain, especially after COVID and the pandemic. Water fountains are not a popular choice for the public because people don't want to put their mouths to these water fountains in consideration of the germs and things of that sort. Now, there have been times where we were granted exceptions and allowed to put a water cooler um, in place of water fountains. And I think that should actually be put in the code language, um, that as long as water is provided in some way, shape, or form. For example, in Miami, they allow businesses to have like a water dispenser on the counter where people can get water. But for people who are retailing and selling beverages and selling food and selling things, providing free water is kind of contradictory to their whole business model, right? So it's little things like that within the code that causes a lot of financial burdens that most people are not expecting to have to deal with in terms of moving or relocating a bathroom or building a bathroom in a public space. For example, I have a bakery in Adams Morgan where it is only a storefront. They have the counter, it's very close to the entryway where people just come in and they pick out their pastries and they go. They had to do $35,000 worth of renovations to make their bathroom that's very way in the back accessible to the public. And that owner currently now has gone bankrupt and lost their business before it could even get off of the ground. So I really think we just need to consider things like that when writing these new codes. And I think that's my 2 minutes.
Thank you so much for the feedback. As I previously mentioned, our comment period starts in fall of 2026. So please feel free to share your feedback at that point, and we'll thoroughly look into it. But thank you again for sharing. Great points.
Thank you.
Vanessa, I've sent you a request to unmute. You have the floor.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Vanessa Bertelli. I'm the Executive Director of Electrify DC, participating in my professional and personal capacity. My comment is in response to Mr. Abel's, Mr. Amen's comment. This is something that this code can really address. Because if, in the case of Mr. Amenez building, the requirement were to only replace with a non-fossil fuel burning appliances, we would see we would have a completely different issue at hand. All of a sudden, we would not be venting for extremely poisonous gases, which you are correct, windows are the best way of doing that, but we would simply be we could absolutely use charcoal filters for recirculating vents without endangering anyone's health. So the decision that this code will make on full electrification will have a down the line impact on all of these ventilation requirements. And then we won't need to be in a situation where, for example, in my home, because of how airtight it is, I have an air exchanger, and therefore it makes complete sense for my vent over my induction stove not to vent to the outside, because in doing so, I would be completely jeopardizing the airtightness of my house. So I think that we need to look at these codes by allocating priority to the things that cause the most issues that require down the line tweaks in code. If we remove fossil fuel burning from our buildings, we will have a way easier time of addressing matters that really are essential to the health and well-being of DC residents. I am done with my comments unless anybody has any questions.
Thank you for the feedback.
Inspector Stevens, I have sent you a request to unmute your mic. You now have the floor. And everyone remember, we have a 2-minute maximum.
Why do I get the warning? Why do I get the explicit 2-minute warning? I get that. I understand.
That's because we know you're concise in everything you do, Inspector Stevens.
Thank you so much, Mr. Brown. How have you been? It's been a while since I've seen you, so good. I just wanted to jump in here real quick, and I won't even take the full 2 minutes. And Peter, I'm still waiting for the meeting invitation from you. I'm beating a dead horse here, and I'm gonna once again bring up the fact that in all this code development feedback, you again have neglected the elevator community and the elevator code. And Keith, you and I have talked about this in the DOCA meeting, and I'm sure you have all heard this from me at some point or another, that we are still living in a 2013 elevator code, and if we're doing code development and code updates, why we're not getting feedback and having listening sessions concerning updating the code and how that applies now, almost 10 years later, to the new changes in society, in innovation, creation, safety, all of the above. I noticed you have building codes and residential codes, and even here mechanical and plumbing codes. Again, I ask elevator codes. Where are we, and what are we doing about that? Where's our listening session?
Well, Inspector Stevens, thank you for the feedback. We're all here right now. Why don't you tell us what you think substantively?
Well, while I am quite adept at elevators and elevator codes, I believe if you engage us in a listening session, some people, and there are very few smarter than me, that would have even more intense feedback on the innovations. For instance, and I'll just give you a couple. We have pneumatic elevators. We have the MRLs. We have um what was I going to go? Oh, I was asked not too long ago about crane and temporary elevators. For instance, they're installing some for the 250 car race that's happening downtown, and I was specifically asked about codes that would cover that. I know it's a GSA and federal property, but elevator codes transcend all of that. The DCMR, while only including elevator, what I meant the IBC only includes elevators in a specific code, which is Chapter 30. The DCMR pales in comparison, like I said, because we're still in the 2013 code. We have so many new innovations. And I heard the gentleman and the young lady speaking earlier about ventilation. Another issue with the code is hoistway ventilation. So if that even speaks to this particular listening session, but like I said before, there are people like I said, very few, but some smarter than me who have some feedback they would certainly love to give DC, because they feel like DC is very behind the curve. And I hear about this often, who would welcome a listening session, be able to give you more intense and more dynamic feedback than what you're hearing from me today.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Is that it? Okay.
Well, tell the other folks to come to the next one, right? Like these are open to all. So um, definitely don't want anyone to be excluded. We want to hear from anybody.
Thank you so much. At this time, I'm looking for any other raised hands. Oh, Mr. Morali, can you raise your hand? And as a matter of fact, no, wait. Oh, you did it for me. No worries. I've sent you a request to unmute your mic. You now have the floor.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sai Murali Sriramaneni. Thanks for the opportunity to provide feedback. I'm a construction safety coordinator with California Department of Transportation, and I'm also a New York City DOB authorized Class 2 code and zoning representative, and I'm also a US DOL OSHA authorized outreach trainer. Um, I would like to provide comment from a constructability, and inspection perspective. As the district updates the mechanical code, I recommend that DOB specifically evaluate how the district will address A2L refrigerants and coordinate the mechanical code requirements with the current ASHRAE 15 and 34 safety standards. In particular, I think districts should provide clear requirements for refrigerant piping passing through multiple floors, shaft requirements, leak mitigation or detection where applicable, equipment listing, ventilation, labeling, and inspection documentation. My concern is that if these requirements are spread among the mechanical, building, fire, and energy codes without a clear coordination provision, designers, plan reviewers, contractors, and inspectors could reach different interpretations. I would recommend either a DC specific coordination provision or an administrative guidance document identifying exactly what must appear on permitted drawings and what must be verified in the field. Also, for plumbing code, I would recommend DOB consider stronger coordination between domestic hot water design, recirculation requirements, scalp protection, and stagnation control. The code should encourage designers to minimize unnecessary dead legs, require proper balancing and commissioning of hot water recirculation systems where they are provided, and distinguish between system temperature requirements and point of use temperature protection. From construction and inspection perspective, it would be useful to identify what documentation demonstrates that a recirculation system was actually balanced and commissioned, rather than simply confirming that the piping was installed. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the feedback. Again, just a gentle reminder, our official comment period starts in fall of 2026. Do we have
Okay.
anyone else that would like to share feedback?
Okay, Cindy, I have sent you a request to unmute your mic. You now have the floor.
Thank you very much. It's good to virtually see you all this morning. And thank you for doing these listening sessions. I think they're very helpful to everyone involved. This morning, I am representing the Apartment and Office Building Association of Metro Washington. And we have some concerns related to conflicts between the 2017, and we'll be speaking more about this during the energy process or the energy listening session in September. But specifically today, we have some concerns about the prohibition of fuel gas as it seems to be required in a subtitle L. And I'm sure you all are working through maybe some conflicts related to this, but I just wanted to take a moment and identify some specific areas of clarification that we think is going to be needed. So specifically, let me see here, there's threshold ambiguity for combustion prohibition in the language of subtitle L. It's unclear whether the term greater than 10,000 square feet, what it says is new construction and additions greater than 10,000 square feet. Is that new construction and additions greater than 10,000 square feet, or any new construction and only additions? Is the 10,000 square feet modifying only the additions or new construction as well? The other issue is it talks about the statute refers to on-site fuel combustion for thermal energy and separately to space heating and water heating. It leaves uncertainty around commercial kitchens, laundry, and mixed-use buildings. Backup power of critical facilities, that language that allowed fossil fuels for backup power to critical facilities, it's not clear whether that's still going to be allowed or not. So it needs to be confirmed that backup power systems remain permissible. And then again, I think most of the other concerns that we have are related to energy in general, so I will save those for September.
Thank you for the feedback, Cindy. Do we have anybody else that would like to give some feedback?
Lyle, I've sent you a request to unmute your mic. You now have the floor.
Good morning. It's Lyle Blanchard from Greenstein, DeLorme, and Lux. I'm both a member of DCBIA and AOBA. I'm not speaking for either one of those, but Ms. Preddy's comments earlier caught my attention. And I think when we do submit comments for the NOPR, we should, we being the general public and people interested in this issue, there used to be a distinction between retail stores that are takeout and having to provide restrooms, and retail establishments that are actually sit-down delis or restaurants And because you have patrons sitting down at tables and consuming food, then it's in those cases that a restroom should be required, perhaps with exemption if they're just a small amount of tables. So I just wanted to remind people of that distinction, and we'll submit comments about that later during the NOPR comment cycle. And I am glad to see that there hopefully will be two notices of proposed rulemaking to give the public ample opportunity to submit comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to share feedback?
I see I've been unmuted. This is Abel Mene again. I didn't want to hold up, but I wanted to follow up a little bit. I also wanted to lift up what was said by another. Sorry, I was mobile, so I didn't catch the name, but it is very important that we move residential units to electrification, removing all fossil fuel burning appliances from residential units should be a high priority. If that is being considered, I want to throw my support behind that, and it will significantly improve kitchen ventilation. But I think we should do both. I wanted to speak a little bit about what was mentioned about mechanical versus natural ventilation. It is very true. Both, in single family homes and in apartment units, natural ventilation is separately required as well. What I was referring to was the fact that because there is natural ventilation, which is already required, it is giving exception to some renovations that are not being fully renovated to up to modern standards because of this recirculating air. And the exception, I was hoping that you remove the natural part from the exception is that if there is another mechanical ventilation in the kitchen, that provides the full, suction that you need to remove any cooking smoke that is generated. But when natural ventilation is given as an exception to install recirculating air, you're essentially giving all apartments that have windows in them, which studios and single bedrooms, the kitchen itself has access to the rest of the living space, which is where the window is located. So it's not like the kitchen itself is a separate unit and has its own window. It's that the apartment has windows in a studio or one bedroom that has open access to the kitchen, and that's what's being used as an exception. So it's not as you would think. And I also wanted to point out that this discrepancy between single family homes and apartment units, it brings back, class and income issues to mind for me, because when you have the requirement that single family homes don't have an exception that if they have windows, they don't require research. That exception has been removed, and it was removed very recently in 2020, so that every kitchen in a single family home has a mechanical ventilation that goes to the outside. Then that's a requirement that has been since the past 5 years, but apartments have not caught up so that have that similar requirement. So I just wanted to point out this discrepancy between how we're treating single family homes and apartment units, and that the natural ventilation is already a requirement. It's almost like for everything, like apartment units are required to have natural ventilation, but that requirement also gives them the option to not have exhaust in the kitchens that go to the outside. So wanted to reiterate all those points. Thank you so much. And I will be submitting comments in the official period and submitting resolutions from the ANC as well.
Thank you very much for the feedback.
Cindy, I've sent you a request to unmute your mic. You now have the floor.
Oh, my apologies. Was my hand up again, or did I forget to lower it? I've already spoke.
It went up again, but no worries.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Right, we will shift focus back onto our PowerPoint. I'd like to draw your attention to the last two upcoming listening sessions that we have. Energy conservation and green construction will be on September 9th, 2026. Our last listening session will be fire on September 24th, 2026. If either of those interest you, please feel free to scan the QR code that you see on this screen and you can register for one or for both. We are looking forward to seeing you at either of them and hearing more about everything that you have going on and anything that you would like to bring to our attention. And once again, your feedback is greatly appreciated. Just as a quick reminder, session recordings and transcripts will be made available within a week. And with that being said, we'd like to once again thank you for coming out. And if you're interested, you can reach us at any of these links. Thank you again and have a great day.
Thank you, everybody.